This is Family Electric Ghost, and we are live on the air on our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels with Hashondra for the first time. And yeah, how are you doing today? And welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you? And thank you.
I'm doing fine in New Hampshire. We finally had some snow. We got a snowstorm yesterday, so we got a little bit of snow on the ground.
I'm here in Georgia where it might be 80 degrees at one point of the day, and then by the end of the evening, we are in sweats. Southeast Georgia, gotta love it.
Yeah, well, New England, we can have snow on the ground, and tomorrow we could have a thunderstorm, or we could be
Yeah.
like 60 degrees. You never know. But one of the things we want to mention is you'll see up there on the top is like we can listen on Newsly. We are a featured podcast on Newsly, Family Electric Ghost Podcast, and you can find us there after we finish here today. And you can use coupon code GHOST to get 1 month free premium subscription, so you can stop scrolling and start listening. Use coupon code GHOST to get 1 month free premium subscription. So with that said, have been a writer for over 20 years, right? An
I
author.
have been I have been writing for over 20 years. I published my first book back in 2018, but I have been songwriting, journaling, sharing publications ever since I was a young teenager. So it's been
That's
a privilege to actually share work with the world in a form that I've always wanted to share with people.
Well, that's interesting. So you write songs too. I think I read that. But yeah, it seems like creative people. When I talk to a lot of creators, I find that they start. Some of them can mention that they're starting when they're like 5, 7 years old.
Hmm.
Musicians will say, "Well, I jumped on a piano when I was like 5 or 6, or I started writing lyrics when I was like 8 years old in a journal." Did you like keep a diary, or did you write a journal? How did you initially like capture your work?
So when I first started writing, I was about 14, and it was basically a release for me. I started journaling. I've always loved music. I always say that music is my first love, and love is my first language. But I started writing music in a journal and poetry. So the more I kind of just combined the two between music and poetry to make songs. So I'll do flowetry, and I started singing at my church choir when I actually was 5 years old. I've always loved the microphone. So at 5 years old, picked up the microphone. I started singing in church choir. And then as a teen, I actually started writing music, and I got the opportunity to share that music with actual people. And they're like, "You did that?" They actually started liking it, and it helped me to build my confidence to write even more. And I've always just been really, really good with words and connecting things that don't seem like they're supposed to connect. Always connecting those dots that people may not see. So that's just come easy for me, like you said, just being a creative.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to have a natural talent, creative people. Like I started writing. I'm a musician. I started when I was like 6, playing clarinet and flutes and saxes, and then I realized I couldn't write with those. Well, you can, but I went to piano. It's a writing instrument like a guitar, and at the same time I was writing poetry. But the weird
Mhm.
thing is, I never mixed the two until I got, maybe when I was like 30. I
Okay.
always kept them separate. I just was like a musician. I never sang. I never put any words to any of my stuff. I just were in bands playing keyboards and stuff. I didn't think to take the poetry. I'd actually go to poetry readings and read my poetry and never think to connect the music to it. And then suddenly I was like, oh, I probably should connect the music to it. But it's different. I found that like writing poetry and writing a song, it's not. I tried to take some of my old poetry and make it work, and I had to actually really heavily edit to make it work in a song structure. So yeah, it's just interesting that, but a lot of songwriters do indicate that they started with poetry.
I think one thing with writing poetry and writing books, a lot of people feel like they have to separate the two. Oh, I'm an author, but I'm also an artist. One unique thing that I did, and I know a lot of people have done it as well, is I incorporated my music into my book. So there's actually 4 songs that is inside of my book where you can read the lyrics, and I call it my seasons. So each season throughout the year of 2023, I'm going to be releasing one of those songs, and is incorporated with what's going on in the book and what's going on with my life. So I just try not to separate my talents. At some point, they're all going to collab because they're all a part of me.
Yeah, I think that's what I found is like there's a synergy, and now I
Mhm.
have this idea of like expansive sound. With the idea of expansive sound is that you combine like all types of music, all types of genres, and you don't pin yourself down. But
Right.
also like the idea is like that includes my poetry, my podcast, and my music. And I think it's cool that you have a multimedia approach because a lot of, as musicians, we have to do reels and TikToks and shorts because we actually get more impact from the visual versions of our music than the audio versions, unless you're super big. Like if you're super big, you might be getting billions of plays on Spotify. But if you're trying to be an emerging artist, you've got to hit the TikTok and the reels and all that stuff to actually connect to an audience.
Yeah, having that driving tool is pretty important. Like my book's my driving tool, and most people think or they'll say, "Oh, well, you can sing as well. I didn't know that part." And then I have people who've known me since I was a little girl. They know the singing version of Hashondra, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're a writer too."
Yeah.
And so it's interesting for the world to meet me as an author, and then for people to know me as an artist because that's something that I've just done all of my life.
So since you have like the books, like your first book is Attached, one 2017. Um, do you go on like book tours and then integrate your music where you do a performance with your it's maybe a song that's in the book or part do you do like a multimedia event?
Now, when I first wrote my first book, Attached, it was for me. It was a just a book. It's published actually December 31st. I took it off the market. It was there from 2018 up in 2000 to 2022. But when I first wrote it, it was something that I just needed to release. I wanted
Mhm.
to always be a published author, and so I set that goal. I achieved that goal, but I didn't really
Hmm. Oh, you froze a bit. What's going on? Oh, she totally froze. And maybe you can come back. We lost you for a second. Are you coming back? Hey. Oh, I think
okay.
yeah, you just suddenly I lost your net or something. You just froze and then you dropped out.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I was talking, then all of a sudden I just seen two circles. That
Yeah,
just means that what I was going to say was going to be really blessing. It was going to be a blessing to somebody's life. That was an interruption, but we are back.
yeah, we're back. So yeah, continue. So you were talking about how Attached was on the market from 2017 to 2022, and then you took it off on December 31st, right?
Yes. So that book was for me. It was my release. It was my way to achieve my goal of becoming a published author. And once I actually wrote Unattached, the final season, it has attached inside of it, but it
Oh,
goes deeper. And
mhm.
it actually shows my transition from me as a teenager up into me as an adult in the area of romantic love, just discovering the authentic me. So it's a whole 20-year journey of my life in that area.
So it's unattached. When you have unattached, you actually have the story of attached, so you don't need to have it out there anymore. I guess you want
Right.
to combine it.
Hmm.
That's cool. So that's your first effort, and then your second effort is now including the first one. So that's all. So you that was something you wanted to put out there because you felt like you needed to get it out, right? You needed to actually speak those truths to everyone or
Yes.
to let people know.
So this is actually the book Attached. It's the true story of how I lost my virginity and the emotional trauma that it caused. So I lost my virginity when I was 16, and it goes through my whole entire story and my perspectives and basically how I thought and just my way of thinking at that time. I was like, wow. When I wrote Unattached the final season, I was writing this book like the transition was just almost breathtaking that my mind had developed so much over time from 22 to 32 to 36. And so I just discovered even more about myself through writing last year, a lot about myself through writing last year. So it's always great to do internal work and be able to share it with the world to let someone else know that, hey, I went through this too, and this is where I am now. But these are the things that I had to do, and these are the tools that I used in order to become the person that I am today. Transparency is really heavy with me inside this book, just to let people know, hey, somebody else went through this too.
Yeah, because like I think there's a question that you had ready to answer is like, what's the hardest part of being a teen mom? And I guess the bringing up to that point, did you feel a lot of peer pressure as a teen to get into a romantic relationship maybe before you were ready? Is that part of the trauma?
Um, no, half of the trauma was just not being ready to have sex, not understanding sex, the value of sex, not understanding who I was as a person. I
Hmm.
can't say that I was just this teenager out running wild because that wasn't my story. I had a steady boyfriend in high school. It was my
Hmm.
high school sweetheart, and we were together for 10 years. So even beyond being a teen, I stuck with the same person. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say peer pressure. It was more of understanding me and getting to know me and not knowing me at that time. Because we never, I can't say that he pressured me. We were in love, that was
Yeah,
my high school, that was my
yeah,
high school sweetheart. So it wasn't really pressure for me. It was decision making for me,
hmm
and
yeah, because
making those decisions as a teen that I should have been making as an adult.
yeah. So you're good looking back at it. You felt like you probably should have waited till you're more of an adult, even though you're in a steady relationship. But I think a lot of people, like, my parents' generation, a lot of them got married because they had relationships when they were teenagers and they got married because the grandparents are like, yeah, you got to get married.
Yes.
Like, that's the rule. That's the old school, going back, to my parents, like talking about like in the 40s and the 50s is like, oh, if that happened, like, oh, you're getting married. That's
Hmm.
there's no other option. Um, but I think people today are starting to realize maybe you don't want to, do that if you're not, if you don't want to necessarily take your first romantic involvement if you're really that isn't you haven't had enough life to understand that unless you actually did find your soulmate,
And
which
that's great what you said about, your parents' generation. I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was very involved, of course, but she worked a lot. So my grandparents helped raise me. And my grandma used to always say, you don't jump from pillar to post. And so, I look at the relationship that my grandparents had and I wanted it. So
hmm
I didn't jump from gotta, or person to person to person. She
hmm
always said, you can be with one person and then they have three issues. You jump to the next person, they have six issues.
yeah
So now, now what? So I just was like, okay, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to, see how this goes. I just want to stick with one person. The person I lose my virginity to is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. So as an adult, when that relationship didn't work out and our daughter came and I was like, oh my God, I'm a single parent. Like I wasn't prepared because in my mind, all I could think was family. So I allowed certain things because I wanted that family. So I had to relearn in my adulthood that it's okay to change my mind about what I once thought. And I had to really get into a position in life to just sit in the position of you are someone's mother and you are a worldly statistic, but you can change your mindset and you can change the whole trajectory of this situation that you have going on. So that took a lot of strength for me to do that because of just the values that I had for myself and what I wanted for me. Not even what anyone else wanted for me, but what I wanted for myself. I didn't want to be the girl that had a whole bunch of baby daddies or, kids from
yeah
all these different fathers. I never wanted to be that girl. So I struggled with that for a while.
Yeah, I think it's hard, today for people to kind of get the roadmap because in terms of how you should be live your life, I've talked to tons of people where, they're doctors or lawyers because their family kind of forced them into that, and
Hmm.
now they're kind of in therapy because that's what they are, but they really didn't want to be that. And there's
Yes.
a lot of people who are kind of pushed into things because of family or because of tradition, and they really don't like what they're doing. And then they have problems with self identity and like self love because they're not self actualizing, right? They're not being who they really want to be. So I
Right.
think so. It was your process that you actually to, had to self actualize and determine like, is this really who you are, right?
Yes. I had to, because just to back up a little bit, I always wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an entertainer. That was my big thing. And then my high school sweetheart was a basketball player. So in my mind, we never had kids. We were going to live this big, great life and then have family later on down the road. But that's not how things worked out. And so mentally, I just had to reset my mind and come to the reality. But you made a great point about just discovering the authentic version of yourself and being the authentic version of yourself when you're parents or your environment pushes you into a profession or a way of life that's not you, and then you're unhappy. I was speaking with someone one day, and I was telling them about the book, and they said, "Why did it take you 20 years to figure it out?" And I said, well, one thing is I graced myself because we have all this time in life that all this information is being pushed on us about who we're supposed to be or who we're expected to be. And then by the time that we figure out that's not who I am, it's going to take us some time to unlearn those things. And I think that some people never really unlearn those things or come to the position of really being the authentic version of themselves because they don't want to take that time to unlearn, to relearn, to heal, and to possibly hurt those people who says, "Hey, I want you to be a lawyer." Everybody in our family is a lawyer. Everybody's married, but I've come to the position of saying, "Hey, that's not who I am, and I'm okay with that." And I talk about that in the book about living in my okay. I'm not where you think I should be, but I'm where I need to be so that I can be the authentic version of me or who I am today. And I'm sitting in that okay about it.
Yeah, I think what I found is like, in order to, I have a dual career. I'm an IT guy, but I'm a musician and I'm a podcaster. What I always wanted to be was that person that went to Berkeley and then was working in the music industry 100%. I'd never been able to do it fully 100%. I'm like 50%. And so, I'm kind of like one foot in the world I want to be in and one foot in the world I got to maintain my house. And take
Understood.
care of my daughter and take care of everybody. And so, I found a way to kind of happy medium. I didn't have to go let it all go and go one way or the other. I kind of tried to have both. And that's kind of hard too. We get to kind of have both to kind of, doing half of this, half of that. But at least I'm doing half of what I really wanted to do. Um, that makes me feel good in that I took the sacrifice to at least take, in terms of time, to at
Hmm.
least pursue the things I really want to do, and it would have the reality that I can't totally give it up, the other kind of day job stuff. But as some people, they just end up never taking that risk to go try to do what they really wanted to be because it's like, oh, that's too much change, and then they can't handle it, and I can understand that because I didn't really start shifting until I was I had an event in my life. I had a cancer, and
Got it.
I survived the cancer, and I said, well, you know what, I'm going to do what I want because I
That
survived.
will definitely make you push to, do what you want and live for yourself because you have to die for yourself. So why not live for yourself? And I have dual careers as well. Actually today I'll be taking on another title. I've been doing hair since I was 14, and I never really valued my skill in doing hair because I've never loved it. It's just something that I can do. And so one day I was in my little meditation mode and I was like, I don't want to do hair today. I'm just not feeling, I don't want to talk to nobody. And my client got here and she said something when she got here. She said, I love coming to get my hair done because I feel like I'm at my therapy session. And I was
Okay.
like, wow. So I never understood that hair was just a driving tool for me to connect with people, which is something that I always wanted to do. So I said, okay, I see you working. I understand how everything that I can do is starting to connect. Because sometimes when you have so many talents and so many gifts that you can give to the world, it gets kind of confusing because some people always tell you, you need to stick to one. You need to stick to one. I'm like, no, I don't need to stick to one. I need to do what I'm good because even though I have 10 talents before the next few years is over, I want to have 20 talents. I always want to expand on who I am and the knowledge that I can give out to the world. So that just really helps me that I to know that what I can do, that skill is also giving me the open door to do what I love to do, which is talk to people, motivate people, because in turn it motivates me as well, especially
Yeah,
when when I'm talking to teenagers
mhm.
about the book, and they're talking about, well, I've heard about STDs. We always hear about STDs that when don't have sex, you're going to get pregnant. But nobody tells you about those nights that you might cry because the person that you've given your virginity to, you've allowed into your special space, has now dished you and went to someone else. Nobody ever talks about that. So that's one thing that I love to talk about with people who are still virgins or still just have one or two sex partners and haven't gotten into, just out there in the world trying to figure it out. So that's some information I really love to share, the emotional trauma.
Yeah. So I guess we could get into the idea of like recovery, and I guess you had talked about how music helps in recovery. And in being a musician, I've always felt that music, we are influencers, we are kind of life coaches. Musicians create the soundtracks that people use to get through events, because we try to take the things that happen to us and make it relatable.
Hmm.
And if you take a song, songs tend to bring back like scenic visions, like they're cinematic. And so if you write a song that means something, right, that's a love song or a sad song or a happy song, people can take that and then they can use that to help themselves. And so a lot of, as artists, can help people uh, by taking what we felt pain and we put it into words and we're able to express it, and then other people can understand it and utilize it. So maybe talk about how music has been helpful to you in your recovery.
Yes. As I was saying, I journal. I've been journaling for as long as I can remember, since I was 14. But one thing about it with me journaling and how it's helped in my recovery is it's just given me that area to release, to say those words that I couldn't quite say to other people, but they're written down. And then sometimes I'll turn on a beat, especially in my early 20s. I'll just turn on beats off YouTube, and whatever comes out, it will come out. you know, Whatever I'm feeling, I'm just freestyling. And it's not like rap. I'm not a rapper, but I can sing pretty well, and I have a very unique voice. So whatever comes out just comes out. And so one of the songs that I really really love is Freedom. If you go on my YouTube channel, you'll actually be able to hear that song. But the some of the lyrics says, "Take me back to a time when I was free in my mind." And that's how I started off the song, because I felt so bound at that time in life. I was getting out of a marriage and I just needed some freedom. I needed some peace. I knew what peace felt like, and I wanted to get back to that place of peace. So using music at those hard times in life and even those happy times in life have gotten me through. But it also has been like a timeline for me. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll look at the music that I've written, and I'm like, I was feeling like this back in 2019 and 2022. Why haven't I changed this yet? Because I can read the song and I should just be able to go back to that feeling, but I'm still feeling like this. This can't happen. So it pushes me to kind of elevate my mind to change, like, okay, girl, that's too long for you to be dealing with that same situation. You're gonna have to wake up in that area, because that's an area you can definitely change.
And it's interesting that you kind of like free form. I've always been a big proponent of stream of consciousness, which is the idea of like you kind of just go with, like, you put down a track or you listen to a beat and then you kind of just free flow it. And a
Mhm.
lot of artists, we just put the tape on and then see what happens, right? You just sit there at the piano, you put the tape on, you just start freeforming it. And because a lot of times, like the really good, talk to a lot of musicians, and they're like, when I try to sit down and actually construct it, and like, oh, I'm gonna make a song. Uh, but if I just kind of riff it, that I go back and listen to an hour worth of like just kind of playing around, you find the
Mhm.
gems in that stuff. That if I actually try to sit down and write it on the bars and really like overthink it, that the stuff that I came up with just in off the cuff ends up being better than the stuff where I was really trying to write it. It just seems like that you can, because you're more honest with yourself. You kind of letting
Mhm.
yourself go. Yeah, if you let yourself go and take everything you've experienced, and then and kind of just trust yourself, like as a creative person, I think that's when you get these creative, really great moments because you've actually like, okay, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to let it be.
Right. And that's one of my slogans. Don't overthink yourself out of being yourself, just be. And I was listening to one of my songs the other day. It just kind of popped up while I was listening to some music. I was like, "Oh wow, that just popped up." But in the beginning of it, you can kind of hear me say, just let go. And I was like, that was very, very therapeutic for me to just go back and be able to listen to myself, not because it's me, but to listen to the words. Because, like I always tell
Hmm.
myself, I talk to myself, I listen to myself, and I grace myself. So to be able to listen to myself through song, and then to be able just to kind of talk back to myself about my feelings and the development and the growth from the period that I made that song, and then just be able to grace myself to know that, hey, I'm growing, and growth is something that we do daily. We grow daily, we learn daily, and we just have to grace ourselves through this daily process.
I think, yeah, one of the things being in IT, I have to understand what I don't know, like because things just change all the time, right? So
Mhm.
even as a person, it's like I think you have to admit what you don't know, and the fact that you have to continually learn. And I've always been kind of like when you run into somebody that thinks they don't need to learn anymore, or they
Wow.
don't need to grow, and they're kind of stuck, and then you can kind of see where they're stuck, and they might think that they're in a perfect position, but they're not willing to grow. And those kind of people can be toxic if you're if you're in the mode where you're in the growth mode, and you've got somebody around you that's like just wants to stay in the same lane they've been in for 10 years or decades, and you're not
Mhm.
there anymore. That sometimes doesn't work.
And I
Like
know
a lot of people.
everybody. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I know everybody's on this, I'm just going to drop you and move off on mode. You're not growing and I'm growing, so I'm just going to kick you to the side. But I've even learned to grace people. You don't have to kick that person to the side or out your life. You just got to know how to position them and know, where do you fit in my life now that I've grown to be a tree and you're still a flower right beside me. But our life
Mhm.
still needs those flowers. We can't just dismiss people, and I'm this tree now, so I can't look down on you, but there's still beauty in that flower, just like there's beauty in the growth of that tree. There's beauty everywhere. You just have to find the beauty that's in that person, and understand how to place it in your life where it's not hindering you, but they're still a part of your life, even if it's a part of your life that's in your past, that you can just look back on and say, hey, we had these happy moments.
Mhm.
These are some of the things that we did, instead of just dismissing people so fast.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be a blocker moment. It doesn't have to be, I'm gonna
Right.
block you on Facebook and block you everywhere and block your phone number. It could be just that, you're not gonna be as significant in my life as you used to be.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna allow like a codependency type of situation, but I can respect you if you respect me. If I
Exactly.
think that's the kind of thing you have to have. You have somebody that becomes toxic, then you have to handle that in a different way. But and I guess that can go into the idea. Well, not the idea, but the point. If you had a point about domestic violence, and maybe you could talk about like how you experienced that and how you got over that, or how you're dealing with that.
With domestic violence and some of the domestic violence situations that I've been in, I basically have handled that by taking my finger, not pointing it at the other person, and pointing at me. And I know that a lot of people say, okay, well, that you were a victim, and I don't consider myself to be a victim. I consider myself to be a survivor. I also don't consider myself only to be the abused, but I have defined myself in certain programs that I've spoke on. I've defined myself as the abuser as well, because there were some preventative methods that I didn't use, or I allowed my anger to take over where I was provoking certain situations. So instead of me pointing, I start pointing at me. What's inside of me that's allowing this to happen? What
Mhm.
issues do I have from my past that I'm not dealing with? Why am I attracted to this type of person? Asking myself all the questions, and then making myself answer those questions, no matter how hard those answers sound to myself. So I always tell domestic violence survivors, I always tell people who are in domestic violence situations, one thing: you have to figure out what you want. And then on top of that, you have to be willing to do the work to change your situation. And I can say that because I've been through that. And I don't babysit anybody when it comes to consulting. I always point, no matter what the situation is, and no matter what people have done to you, or no matter what people have done to me, there's no one else that you can control in this life but yourself. You can control your responses, you can control your actions. And even when bad things happen to you that you can't control, because of course we all know that there's things that you just can't control, but you can reach control your response to those actions. Yes, I was in a domestic violence situation, but I'm going to respond in a positive manner, and I'm going to take my situation to help the next person out, because it's not just women that are in domestic violence situations, there's men as well. And through our nonprofit, we actually promote healing for domestic violence and also for breast cancer awareness. So, of course, we highlighted in October, but all through the year, we have different programming that highlights and helps domestic violence survivors. So, even through that programming, when I'm speaking to domestic violence survivors, I always tell them the best thing to do is to focus on you, make those changes within you, figure out what's going on with you, and handle it and move forward. No matter how hard it is to take that mirror and look at yourself, you're going to have to do it if you want to move forward. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to make some decisions that may be hard, and strip away that pride. Pride was my issue with moving in my situation. It wasn't that I didn't have the help, that I didn't have the knowledge, it because I knew how to get the knowledge. It was the pride. It was the pride of saying that I failed at a marriage, or that I failed at a relationship.
Yeah, sometimes that can cause you to continue something just because you don't want to, admit failure or have a failure revealed, and
Hmm.
then you have to make the hard decisions. And that's always a hard thing to deal with, is like when you know something's going to change, and change is causes fear, and fear is usually the cause of most pain.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've seen is like, fear of the unknown, fear of taking the next step, fear of what other people are going to think. It's all these different types of fear. And yeah, I'm a Buddhist, and we do believe, and there's a lot that the self, what you can do. Like a lot of
Yes.
our belief system is all based on the fact that there's karma, and there's karma that might have come from your ancestors, and there's karma that's
Hmm.
based on things but you can do things where it's like the law of cause and effect. If you
Right.
do put positivity into the world from a Buddhist perspective, then you'll get back positivity. If you put negativity, you get negativity back. So
Hmm.
when you do your response, if you're coming from a positive place, you're more likely going to end up in it with a positive outcome than a negative outcome. So it makes you think about how you how you behave in the world, and
Hmm.
it's kind of mathematical and psychological and physiological, uh, because it's like everything does have a reaction in the physical world. If you do something, there's something will happen, and the same thing happens like in relationships. If you do something positive or negative, then you get different results. But
Exactly. Response. I always say response is everything. Response is everything.
so your organizations, you have a lot of you have like Don't Overthink Me, and then you have Manifest Deliverance Foundation, like the MAD. So which one are both of these involved with your the type of work that you're doing for I guess as a life coach? Is one more,
So
or are they combined?
Don't Overthink Me LLC is my personal consulting business. So I help clients to identify and achieve their goals. And I also work with health and wellness. So I have some healthcare products and some different items such as that I also disperse worldwide through my website. Now, with the Manifest a Deliverance Foundation, that is the foundation that I founded. I'm the president and founder of MAD. And basically, what we do is we encourage people to get mad the right way. So, with my life consulting, I donate 25 slots to 25 women, and I do one on one consulting with them for free. So, I only house 50 clients. I try to do very, very customized individual, what do you need to do, how do we need to do this to get you to the next level plans with each person. And it takes time, especially when you're being intentional. So I just make sure that I have my 25 paying clients, and then I have my 25 volunteer clients.
That's cool. So that's like a 501c type of
Yes.
organization. Yeah.
So we're a 501(c)(3) in the state of Georgia.
So do you just deal with clients in Georgia, or do you go beyond that?
I have a few clients, actual clients that are outside of Georgia. So it's pretty much worldwide. It just depends because we have the option of, talking virtually. We have the option of talking on the phone. If there is another state, I have to do some research into some of the resources that may be needed depending on that person's situation. Because I can go from one-on-one planning to someone wanting to plan a wedding, and I'm helping them with the stress of the wedding, actually staying on a budget, financial budgeting and all that type of things, planning, those type of things. And then I may be working with another client who's trying to overcome fear. So it's very vast and
Hmm.
it's very different, and it causes me to stay on my toes with my research and just staying up to date. So I have to make a lot of networking connections, and I use those networking connections to help all of my clients and people who aren't even my clients. If there's some information that I have that I can just help, maybe a group that I'm involved with or someone who I see on social media, and I know that this is something that they're trying to do. Hey, there's a new grant that came out, or hey, there's a new business loan that you might want to look into since you're looking for funding, and just kind of give them that information.
Do you take part in like I guess conferences with other life coaches? Like I've seen that I've actually started to talk to life coaches in the last year or two, and I've seen that sometimes they have these conferences where there's opportunities for multiple types of life coaches to get together and kind of present these different approaches to solving problems. Has that been something you do online or physically go to conferences, or you haven't done that yet?
I haven't physically been to a conference. I've been to a few online conferences, and then with the school that I went to actually become a life coach, they have different seminars that we can attend just to kind of give us information on how to ask the questions and not just give our advice. And that's something that I've just been very good at even before becoming an actual life coach, a certified life coach, is being able to listen to someone and restate what they said so that they can hear it and they can approach it a different way, or they can really understand exactly what they're saying. Or I'll say, well, basically what you're saying is, they're like, well, no, that's not what I said. I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of how you explained it. That's just not how it's perceived in their mind, but that's how it's coming off. So then we have to kind of bridge that gap and to figure out how can I say this for you to understand what I'm really meaning. So I'm very excited this year about being able to connect with some more life coaches and to be able to go to some conferences. So I have a few things that have planned for this year.
That's awesome. And so you also have Just Be Naturals. That's your product area
Yes,
where you have the custom products.
yes.
And
So
everybody can get everything from your website, right? You can get to all these different branches from your website.
yes. So Just Be Naturals is a sea moss gummy. And so it helps with joint pain. It also helps with brain fog. It helps with skin, hair, and nails, with the digestive system. It's just an overall vitamin that really helps the body to stay healthy. And if anybody is familiar with sea moss, sea moss is a natural product. It's vegan.
Hmm.
So, anyone is able to use it. I used to actually sell the sea moss gel, but I'm a survivor too of cancer, and that's what got me into a lot of natural remedies. So when I first started, I just started doing it for myself. Then I started doing
Mhm.
it for family and friends, and then it just started expanding to the point where I was mailing it off, and I'm like, people were using it incorrectly. I was just kind of skeptical about that. I didn't want to be blamed for anything. So I
Yeah.
wound up creating my own recipe for the sea moss gummies and getting it mass produced. And so now I feel way more comfortable selling those. It's 2 years, expands the bottle actually extends or has a life shelf of 2 years. So I just feel a lot more comfortable selling the sea moss gummies.
Yeah, it's always good when you actually have more hands-on on some products. You have to
Hmm.
do research when you get involved. I see lots of influencers on the net, and they get involved with products that did they really check it out before they endorse it. 'Cause
Right.
you can get yourself in trouble if you don't really check it.
Right, and I did 6 months of research on my sea moss gummies. I had friends, even my mama, she's like, "Let me try it, let me take it." I'm like, "No, ma'am, I'm not giving it to anybody until I figure out this recipe and I get it right. Then I have
Mm,
to find somebody who's going to be able to produce the recipe the way that I want it produced."
yeah, because you got to be careful because people are like doing all kinds of things on the net. And it's like, well, you
Yes.
you have to think about like, are you safe? Are you like
Mhm.
really producing something good quality? And you're not, you just have to think about it. So you vegetarian after cancer? Was that like part of your like post treatment that you decided to go vegetarian?
So with going vegetarian, I have a very interesting story. I had just ate a cheeseburger. And I was just really unhealthy at the time when it comes to my eating habits. It just wasn't clean. I just ate a cheeseburger. I got into this hot tub of water, and I love taking long baths and showers. So I got into this hot tub of water, and my chest started hurting. And
Oh,
I felt like spirit just told me, stop eating meat. And it was
mhm.
so clear. I was like, God, is that you? you know? And from that day forward, I did not eat meat again. It was like, stop eating meat. And this was about a year before COVID hit. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I told them, I said, I feel like if I would have stayed on the lifestyle that I was on, I wouldn't have survived COVID. Thankfully, because of CMOS, because of exercising, because of those lifestyle changes, me or anyone in my family, we were blessed not to be able to experience COVID. So that was very, very good. But just starting that journey started there with that voice like, listen, you need to get your life together. Because I was about 120. After my divorce, I got up to 199 pounds. And I finally just got to this place where it's like, this is not you. You got to start
Right.
dropping weight. My cholesterol was high. My skin was bad. My hair was falling out. And I was like, this is not you. This is not who you are. This is not the example that you need to set for your children or the people who look up to you. Like, you really need to get your health together. So by me making that decision to become a vegetarian, to take better efforts in exercising and eating healthy and taking supplements and natural supplements that's actually going to work, that's not going to be harmful to my body, I cannot tell you the domino effect that it's caused on my family, on my friends, on community. When I'm doing outreach, people always ask my story, and I can actually tell them with proof. I actually reversed my allergies with CMOS, and my allergy doctor, she's just like
Wow.
amazed at how I was able to do it without allergy shots or anything.
Well, I think is that there's an American kind of crisis if you look, because of the kind of junk food, fast food,
Hmm.
unhealthy food being pushed by corporate entities that don't really care if it's good for you. They just care about the bottom line.
Exactly.
And being a cancer survivor, like, and I live in New Hampshire, I'm luckily able to get really good organic produce and organic foods. And I've been organic, like anti-pesticide, ever since my cancer, because one of my cancer was a level 3 sarcoma. That was an external cancer on my back, and it was caused by, most likely, when they looked into it, some kind of pesticide from
Uh,
like the Monsantos and the companies of the world like that. Not that I can pin it down, but the fact is, it came from something like that. It was external. It wasn't a history of my family. It wasn't an internal cancer. And so then I said, you know what, I got to get these pesticides out of my life. I got to try to get into, getting away from, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and just live a better life. We actually have a hydroponic garden in our house, and we grow our own veggies, so we
Oh.
can wholly control that we don't get any VOCs or any pesticides on it because we're growing our own stuff. And my daughter was like, you knew about my whole story about getting cancer when I was 27, before he was born, and he has been very cancer conscious about what's out there and how you interact with
Mhm.
the world and what you take in and what you don't take in. And it's really cool that she, that gave her a lesson, and she's living her life in a really positive way. And I'm glad that I was able to at least give her that.
Mhm. It's amazing how our changes affect our children a lot. Because, of course, meat's not bought for my house. So when my children are here, they don't eat meat. I don't discourage them from eating meat, but I mean that's your personal decision. But when you're here, this is the lifestyle that we're gonna live. We don't buy sodas or there's just a lot of things that's not allowed when they're home. I have an 18-year-old and a 10-year-old. So my 18-year-old just went back to college. So, but even with her going away at college, she still doesn't buy meat. I'm
Well,
still
that's
working
cool.
with my youngest.
It's hard though, because the way the world is, it's very hard to eat as a vegetarian at certain class levels if you don't have the money, because it costs a lot more money. Unless there are things you can do, like we grew our own food, so that reduced the
Mhm.
cost. So you can do steps like trying to grow your own food, and getting, going to a real farm and not having to go through the middleman and get access to a lot of stuff. That's one thing with New Hampshire. We have access to farmers, so we
Right.
can, and these farmers are actually using greenhouses in the winter, so we can still get in bulk way. It's a lot cheaper. So people, oh, you can't afford it. Well, if you get to a farm, you can actually get veggies that are cheap if you don't go
Mhm.
through the middleman at the grocery store. If you go directly to the farmer, you can get a
Exactly.
better deal. And it says, so there's a way to do it. We did the research, and we live in a place where we can get to it. In urban areas, it might be harder to get to that kind of thing. But yeah, I just think you have to think about what you need to do for yourself.
Here in Southeast Georgia is about the same. We have a farmers market, and I grew up next to a garden. And ultimately, my goal is to live on a farm. I want to buy some farmland, and I want to garden my pond. Want to, just be able to live a very clean life. So that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I've been happy that my daughter has gone, like, really crazy with the hydroponics, and that she's growing like everything. She she's got these, that grows like all year round. She's figured out how to be a
Wow.
hydroponic gardener, and she's kind of a techie, but she found a tech way to do it. But um, so maybe closing into, like, what's going forward in your life, the things that are coming out. Are you working on any more books or plans for 2023? Do you have like a goal for 2023 with your literature or books or life coaching you can talk to our fans about?
So for 2023, my goal is to promote Unattached the final season from January 1st to December 31st. I want to get this book into the hands of so many people for two reasons. One, because I feel like it's a universal book that will help everybody, and two, I also feel like it's a book that will change the life of anyone who wants change in their life. So that's my main goal this year is to just get the book, get it to people who love to read and even people who don't want to read. So in about 6 months, August is usually when I do the release. My book was released the day after my birthday, August 8th, 8885. It's like my day of release and new beginnings. So for this year, 2023, a birthday gift to myself is to have audio version created of the book for people who may not, like to read, but could still could still use this information. So those two are the goals. And then the third goal is just to be able to share my music with the world. The 4 songs that are inside the book, to get those recorded. And there's this particular way that I want to record them. I have them recorded now, not quite ready to release
Hmm.
them, but because there's a very particular way that I want to record this music before I release it. I want to use um, the old fashioned method of being able to actually sit down with musicians and
The
produce it
producer.
from
Yeah.
scratch. So that's one of the big goals. Well, I think three of the biggest goals that I have for 2023 when it comes
So
to
you actually when you so when you do the songs, you want to go to a studio and have like session musicians actually put it down in the old school method.
yes, when because one of the problems that I have is matching my voice with a pre-recorded beat. I
Yeah,
just think I have a unique sound, and there I found that songs
real
that
drum.
match me the best are when I sit down with the actual band or a producer and it's catered to me versus
Mhm,
me having to cater myself to it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to put it out like that. These beats are amazing, but I have to strain a little bit here, and that's not really how I want to sound. So I want to put everything that I put out. I want it to be quality. I revised this book 7 times. I put
mhm.
it through a lot of editors' hands. And one of my things was don't change my voice. I want people to hear me. This is how I talk. I stutter a little bit, but I am who I am. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have some really good information. And that's another thing I just want to encourage people. Like, no matter what your downfalls are, you just still have to get your message out there because somebody wants to hear it. And more importantly, somebody needs your story. Somebody needs your story.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of I'm a DAW-less producer, which means I don't use digital audio workstations. I multi-track. I use a lot of analog equipment. I kind of I since I'm a musician, I play every part. Like I play my bass lines,
Mm-hmm.
I put my drum, and if I do the drums, I don't take somebody else's drum. I have like 808s. I have actual drum machines, and I have the ability to actually create drum patterns from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So like everything I've ever done as the Ghost has never been like taking it from Splice or Fruity Loops or something. I go and I play, or I go find a drummer and I get a
Right.
real drummer, and because I'm a drum programmer. I know how to create drums, but sometimes I'll put down a drum program and I still want a real drummer because there's nothing like a Motown type drummer. Like if you go,
Yes.
you get like an original type
Yes.
of R&B or a funk drummer, they'll take I can show them what I wanted. I can put down like an 808, but a real drummer is going to take what I did on 808, and if they're what I think they should be, they're going to go and blow me out. They're going to like because I'm not a drummer, I'm a keyboardist, so I'll do
Mhm.
the best I can. But it's like a bass player is going to play better than me. I'm a keyboardist, and so you find the person that can do it. The horn players, like I can play horn, so I could probably do that. But yeah, I understand what you're saying because like a lot of people today, they're in the box. Oh, I can replicate the sax. I can replicate this. You can do everything on these computers. You could,
Right. It's
but
not the same.
it doesn't sound like Motown. It doesn't sound like Stax. It doesn't sound like that. And I've pointed out to my young people I deal with, well, I don't need that. I don't need to do that. I said, well, maybe you might want to have a real slap bass instead of a sampled bass. Because something about a bass player actually playing that, and then they show them the difference, and they go, "Oh, there is a difference." you know, it's always so. Oh no, she froze again. Oh, crap. Sorry. I think we lost her for a second.
Okay, so we're back.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I mean, I've always trying to. I think there is a movement today. There's a lot of people who want authentic music and actually want
Mhm.
composed music. They want people to actually play the Hammond organ or play that
Yes.
piano, because there's a place for the perfect beat to the dance club or something. That's fine.
Mhm.
But if you want something more substantial, if you want something like a Marvin Gaye song or a Temptation song, you can't get it the way they're doing it
See,
today.
my voice is a little bluesy and country, and so there's just a certain sound that I'm looking for. And I've experienced authentic music. And when I've performed at like jazz clubs and just kind of laid back lounges and those type things. And that's more my element. I'm not like a
Mhm.
power singer, but I am a singer where I sing with a lot of meaning and feeling. So I just want the instruments behind me to project who I am.
Yeah, I totally get that because we're living in an age where people, have like the more robotic music, but
Hmm.
it's just we got to get it. I tell young people all the time, it's like take the time to actually learn an instrument. don't just be a producer. You know,
Right.
actually go pick up that guitar, pick up the bass, pick up a sax, actually learn how to play it. And it's because it's going to make your music sound so much better if you actually really play an instrument.
Yeah,
Um,
I played the bass clarinet and the clarinet, and then I played auxiliaries in the marching band. So I'm not a stranger to, even an instrument either. I've never learned how to play a piano or a guitar. That's always been uh, something I want to do, but I'm like, no, somebody else can do it. I'm gonna stay in my element.
yeah, they're good writing instruments. It's cool to learn how to, the guitar and the piano are the primary writing instruments. But
Hmm.
it's even if you don't know it super well, you're not an Elton John, you're Billy Joel, you're not, the great like Bernie Worrell from Funkadelic. But if you just learn some chords, it can
Right,
help you come up with like something that can be very unique. Like even if you're not the best player, if you sit down on the piano and you sing something original, it's yours. And how
right.
you did it, you might not be the best player, but you can actually still come up with something that's very impressive. I've actually run into people say, "Well, I can't really play piano," but I've actually taken what they did and said, "Well, that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually great because it's you. As long as it's authentic, it's
Hmm.
the main thing."
And that's usually my go-to. I'm like, listen, I know this is the key I want it in, and I know I want this melody, but you're gonna have to work magic on it because that's as far
Yeah,
as I can
yeah, you
get.
know what your limitations are.
Yes.
But it's always good to like just be creative. I love the fact that you're doing the music. So when the music comes out, are you just going to include it with the book in some way, or are you going to make it so somebody can go to like a streaming service and hear it?
So it'll actually be on my YouTube platform, and the
Hmm.
goal is to actually be able to perform. I have a few performances lined up. So even though I'll perform them live, there'll be one of them is poetry and flowetry. So I've performed that quite a few times already. But once it's inside the book, and it's a whole chapter that has all of the lyrics, and I'll
Oh,
just basically be performing it. And there'll be one that comes out each season, as I call it. So the first one is Changes, and it's just a poem literally about the changes of life. And each song that I have in there, I've dedicated it to different people. Changes is dedicated to my son who passed away, and that story is actually inside the book. Uh,
oh,
the the next track is dedicated to my youngest daughter. The next one's dedicated to my oldest daughter, and then the last track is actually dedicated to my future forever. So I've wrote a very special song for my future forever inside my book.
wow, that's a different. I never heard of it termed that future forever. That's a cool term. I like that.
Yes.
So I just want to thank you for being on the program. Everyone should go to your website, which is below and will be clickable when we fully publish. And we will be on Spotify video podcast and Apple podcast and Amazon, Google Play, a bunch of different platforms this will be on. And like I said, we're going to send you a landing page so you can push that up everywhere that you want to. And I did enjoy this conversation. I think everybody should check out your books and go to your website and check out your services. And you actually will consult with people if people contact you, right?
Yes. I am very active, so I will respond. I respond, and it's
That's
me.
that's
So
awesome.
very hands on.
Well, thank you for being with us this afternoon. I was a very good conversation. I enjoy podcasting. It's something that I've gotten passionate about, and it's cool to meet different people all the time. And I do appreciate the fact that we were able to have a conversation. So I look forward to maybe talk to you in the future when you have maybe you're ready to publish this next piece in a chapter of your work. We do have people come back. So if you did want to come back to promote it, you can get in touch with us.
I appreciate you having me, and thank you. I would love to come back.
Okay, thank you.